Welcome back to our Datadog logging series. Today we're diving into advanced strategies for one of its most powerful features, logging without limits. If you're dealing with massive log volumes or just want pinpoint control over costs, this one's for you. Let's jump in. First up, visibility. We're heading to the Log Management Estimated Usage dashboard, your control center for log volumes and cost. Here's how to find it. Go to Dashboards, Dashboard List, then look under All Integrations. Search for Log and select Log Management Estimated Usage at the top. First, set the time range to at least 1 week, ideally a month. You need a full cycle to truly understand your logging patterns. This dashboard highlights two key metrics, ingested logs and indexed logs. They may use different volume units, focus on quantities to spot the big contributors. Let's focus on your exclusion ratio. That's the percentage of logs you chose not to index. In this case, 48% are indexed. The rest were discarded after 15 minutes. That's logging without limits in action. So why does this matter? Let's break down what you should focus on inside this dashboard. The key driver of cost? Indexed logs, not ingested ones in most cases. Ingestion usually runs about 10 cents per gigabyte. So unless you're massive scale, you can ignore it. Indexing, though, that's where the money goes, especially with longer retention. One of the key differences, the ingested logs is priced related to the gigabyte quantity coming in Datadog, whereas the indexing price is measured on the number of logs indexed. Note that if you're at scale and your bills are creeping up, it's still worth monitoring ingestion to avoid surprises. If this is significant for you, do not hesitate to comment on this video for various strategies to tackle this. This dashboard helps you spot where logs originate, and more importantly, identify noisy sources to cut back on, reducing both cloud egress costs and ingest volumes. Here's where it gets serious. Focus on your indexing ratio. That's where the bulk of your log-related costs come from. Some large enterprises index as little as 5 to 10% of their logs. But most companies land between 40 to 60%, depending on what they send and how aggressive their indexing filters are. Ultimately, your costs hinge on how much you send, how much you index, and how sharp your exclusion strategy is. If you're excluding less than 10%, you're likely indexing too much, which means higher costs and more noise. Want to fine-tune your indexing game? You'll need to tweak your filters. We covered setting up log filters in detail in a previous video. Be sure to revisit it if you need a refresher. So, how do you go beyond the basics with this dashboard? This dashboard gives you high-level granularity, great for spotting trends and anomalies. By default, the dashboard is global. But that's not the full picture. You can and should break it down by service, index, or team to pinpoint who's generating what. Also, inspect partitions to understand traffic sources and outliers. Remember, not all services ingest and index equally, so avoid blanket policies. If you see logs tagged as NA, flag those. They're often misconfigured and may be safe to exclude. You want all logs properly attributed. Anything tagged NA is usually just noise. Scroll down and you'll get additional time-based stats to track log behavior over different periods. This helps spot spikes, like a service flooding logs briefly, then dropping off. These patterns matter. You can view this by log volume, event count, or ingestion spikes. Choose what gives the clearest insight. You'll see views by raw byte volume too, for both ingested and indexed logs. Even at a high level, these metrics often tell you enough to act confidently on what to trim or adjust. For high volume logs, this extra layer of visibility is key, especially when you're unsure what to drop. Use this to assess whether excluding a log set would hurt visibility or just clean up noise. Since this is all metric-driven, don't hesitate to add these views to your own dashboards. Even better, create monitors to alert you when teams exceed log volume or indexing policies. Now let's pivot to something crucial for cost-conscious teams: rehydration. Rehydration lets you pull logs from cold storage back into live search, only when you need them. This unlocks smarter exclusion. You can be aggressive with filters while keeping history within reach. To rehydrate logs, navigate to any log section and click Rehydration from the sidebar or context menu. If you've previously rehydrated logs, you'll see a list here. Since I haven't, it's empty, but yours may show past views. Click New Historical View to start a fresh rehydration query. First, keep this in mind. Scanning your archive has a cost, based on how much data you're querying. Datadog will scan the archive you've selected during this process. Here, I don't have an archive configured, but normally you'd pick one and see an estimate based on your selected time frame, how many logs, total size, and scan cost. This impacts your cost. Rehydration is priced by gigabytes scanned, so large archives equal larger bills. Large archives take longer to scan and will hit your budget harder. Plan accordingly. Pro tip, always narrow your time range. Don't scan an entire week if you only need logs from 2 hours. Next, rehydration volume. This depends on the query you run and time frame you pick. For example, if I choose past 3 hours, the tool updates the estimate instantly. Very handy for cost control. You can also pick exact times using the calendar, then enter the specific query you want to run. For instance, you might only want logs with status error from your payment service. Keep it laser focused. Of course, the more logs you choose to reindex, the higher the cost, so filter wisely. Only select logs you truly need, even if your archive has logs from multiple sources. This acts as a safety net to keep volumes in check and avoid accidental overage. And finally, set the retention period for rehydrated logs, 3, 7, or 90 days. Shorter retention is cheaper. Unless you really need it, stick to the minimum viable duration. Be intentional here. Select retention that fits your actual investigation window. Last tip, enable notifications before you click rehydrate, so you're alerted when it's done. Here's the big takeaway. Make rehydration easy by planning ahead. Label archives clearly. Don't overfragment by team. Keep everything easy to locate and quick to scan. That means setting up archives that are clearly labeled, not overly split by teams or microservices, easy to locate and scan. If you don't know where your logs are archived, you won't rehydrate them. Period. And if rehydration feels like a hassle, you'll default to over-indexing, just to be safe. That's costly. Let's move to another topic of advanced filtering. You can set exclusion filters by specific attributes, like user_ID or job_ID. Why do that? Let's say you're debugging a flaky workflow tied to specific jobs. Instead of randomly drop in logs, keep all logs for every third job. It's a smart sampling strategy. That way you maintain full traceability for a subset of users while cutting log volume overall. It's a niche trick, but a game changer for pinpoint debugging in complex environments. Let me show you how. It's quick. Go to your index, open your exclusion filter, and click Edit or create a new one. Instead of broad filters, choose a specific attribute, any key you're logging by. For example, select user_ID if that's available in your log metadata, then set a filter, say 1 out of every 10 users gets full log indexing. That means 90% of users get excluded, while 10% give you full journey visibility. This gives you end-to-end visibility on enough user flows without overwhelming your indexes. Even if you're not capturing every journey, you're still retaining the insights you need. Now, if naming inconsistencies are making queries harder, lean on standard attributes. If multiple teams are shipping logs, chances are they're using different field names for the same data. For example, user_ID, UID, and user.id might all mean the same thing, but your queries won't know that. That's where standard attributes help. They remap these inconsistencies behind the scenes. They unify naming conventions across teams and sources automatically. For instance, once mapped, all variants of user_ID show up under a single unified field in Log Explorer. Whether it's UID, user ID, or user_ID, it'll all show under one field, clean and searchable. No matter the format, you get unified search and visibility thanks to standardized attributes. Here's how it works. Head to Log Explorer, and on the left, select your unified attribute. If I click user.id, it automatically includes user_UID, UID, and the rest. No duplicates, no mess. By now, you've seen the core strategies behind logging without limits: visibility, control, and cost efficiency. But there's one more powerful feature we need to touch on: Flex Logs. It builds on everything we've covered so far, so let's quickly introduce how it works and why it matters. We'll explore Flex Logs in detail in another video, but here's a sneak peek. Datadog now supports Flex Logs, a game changer for budget-conscious teams. With Flex Logs, you can retain everything, but only pay when you query. It is not ideal for most observability use cases, but has real value in some of them. Visualize it like this: full retention, but cost only triggers when your team actively searches. Perfect for teams that need instant access to logs, without always paying the indexing premium. We'll dive deeper into Flex Logs with real examples in an upcoming tutorial. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you'll find docs under log configuration, then Flex Logs inside the Datadog platform. You'll also see a Flex Logs tab where you can enable and configure it directly. And that's a wrap on this advanced guide to mastering logging without limits. If this video helped you cut costs or rethink your logging strategy, smash that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and drop your current exclusion ratio in the comments. I'd love to compare. Until then, happy monitoring.